Good morning, Team Alabama readers. We are ready for some more Hidden Figures. Please find Chapter 15, page 122. You're going to add to your facts, and hopefully you are at 50 and you're going over your 50 to add some extra credit facts up to 70, and your 10 vocab and your 10 questions. It is hat day here at school, so you will need to ignore the hat, please. Chapter 15, Young, Gifted, and Black. While Mary Jackson was busy at work helping the NACA build supersonic airplanes, girls in high school were beginning to imagine different possibilities for themselves. Even though teaching was still the best option available, there were now more career choices. On October the 5th, 1957, Christine Mann, a senior at the Allen School for Girls in Asheville, North Carolina, left her dorm room first thing in the morning and walked to the library. Her job was to open the library and organize the newspapers and magazines before anyone else arrived. She took a moment to read the headlines as she set up the displays. Since the beginning of the school year, newspapers around the country had discussed the racial crisis in Little Rock, Arkansas. 9 black teenagers trying to integrate the all-white Central High School had turned the state's capital city into a military battleground. The Arkansas National Guard had been called out to prevent the black students from entering the school. In response, the federal government sent U.S. Army troops to escort the 9 students into the school. The crisis unfolded over days, and each morning Christine followed the news of the brave children who were close to her in age. The showdown had dominated the headlines, and then the Soviet Union launched Sputnik. The Russians did it. They had created a satellite and launched it into orbit, and they did it before the United States. With tensions between the two countries already high because the Cold War, this news put everyone further on edge. The United States needed to catch up. Here's a picture of the replica of the Soviet Union's Sputnik 1. At the Langley Memorial Aeronautical Laboratory, there was great pressure to outperform the Russians. They wanted to beat the Russians. At 360 miles above Earth, the altitude at which a satellite would fly around the planet. For the engineers, beating the Russians in space was a matter of personal and professional pride. In the rest of the country, the fear was political. Red-made satellite flashes across the U.S., read the Daily Press and Newport News. Sphere tracked in 4 crossings over U.S., read the New York Times. When Christine read the news, she felt that she had fallen asleep in one world and awakened in another. October the 4th, 1957 marked the end of the post-war era, a time when the world was rebuilding after the destruction of World War II. The morning on October the 5th was the official dawn of the space age, the beginning of mankind's realizing a long-held dream to fly beyond Earth's atmosphere and visit outer space. President Dwight D. Eisenhower tried to dismiss the Russians' small ball in the air as an insignificant achievement. But the American people knew better. Sputnik, some experts declared, was nothing less than a technological declaration of war. The Russians had won the first battle, but the space race was just getting started. Okay, guys, remember that you're doing those 10 to 15 facts about space race, civil rights movement, and women's rights or gender equality, whichever way you want to call it. Okay, all of these things are major things that are going on in the world around them during this time. The Sputnik Age. For the 3rd time in the century, the United States found itself falling behind other countries, technologically during a period of international tension. On the cusp, or the start, cusp means beginning, of World War I, the country didn't have enough airplanes. So the government created the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics, and at the start of World War II, America's craft industry lagged behind Germany's. But during the war, it surged to global dominance. Now the threat came from the Soviet Union. It wasn't Sputnik. The Soviet Union had missiles, perhaps hundreds. It wasn't just Sputnik, sorry. The Soviet Union had missiles, perhaps hundreds of them, with the power to reach U.S. cities and deliver nuclear bombs. A new term began to make the rounds in policy circles. The press and the private conversations, the missile gap. Black newspapers and their readers wasted no time in making the link between America's inadequacy in space and the dreadful conditions facing many black students in the South. While we were forming mobs to drive Authrine Lucy, the black woman who integrated the University of Alabama in 1956 from the Alabama campus, the Russians were compelling all children to attend the best possible schools, argued the Chicago Defender, until the United States changed its views on racial inequality and gave the same opportunities to all students. It would never be able to lead the world, the newspaper commented. So if we don't stop segregating kids and students, we're never going to compete on a worldwide scale, is what they're saying. An editorial in the Cleveland Call and Post echoed that idea. Who can say that it was not the institution of the Jim Crow school that had deprived this nation of black scientists who might have solved the technological kinks delaying our satellite launching? For Christine Mann, reading the news brought mixed emotions. She felt fear, certainly. She had been just 3 years old when the first atomic bombs were dropped on Japan. She was part of the first generation in history of the world to grow up with the possibility of the human race becoming extinct due to nuclear war. The hostility between the United States and the Soviet Union made the country anxious about nuclear war. Black and yellow triangular fallout shelter signs popped up in public spaces, pointing the way to underground bomb shelters that were supposed to provide protection in the event of a nuclear attack. At school, students practiced duck and cover drills under their desks. Okay, so here are these fallout shelter signs that you can see on page 127. At the same time, Christine felt a sense of wonder, even a thrill, to see a satellite circling Earth in the skies above. The world beyond Earth had always been a mysterious place. Space travel was becoming a natural next stop for the restless inhabitants of Earth, not just the subject of science fiction. What had been a dream was becoming reality. Christine and many other Americans worried that the Soviets had traveled into space before the Americans. We can't let them beat us, she thought, echoing the sentiments shared by those who worked at the Langley Laboratory and citizens across America.